Welcome to the Object-Oriented UX podcast, a podcast about tackling complexity head-on, gracefully organizing massive amounts of information, and designing scalable, future-proof, and of course, naturally intuitive object-oriented user experiences. An OUXer is a powerful blend of information architect, business analyst, facilitator, and UX strategist. If this sounds like you or what you aspire to, you are so in the right place. I'm Sophia Prater, UX designer, chief evangelist of Object-Oriented UX, and your host. Let's jump into it.
Okay, y'all, so how to save UX in 5 easy steps. This is not tips. This is not hacks. This is not a bunch of big fluffy ideas that you can't do anything about. I really want to get practical here on what we got to do. So I know it's a really ambitious title, but I've been feeling pretty crusady now. I don't know if you've seen that on the internet, on the social media. I've been spicy because I'm just getting really infuriated. But before I get into all my messages about this idea that UX is dead, which I have very, very distinct thoughts on, I want you to know, I want you to know, I already know, that I have got a free event coming up on March 27th, 2025. If you were listening to this after March 27th, don't worry. Go to OUX.com/levelup to register. It's a totally free 90-minute training. I'm so freaking excited about this. This is honestly, I think it's one of the best things I've ever created. So I'm really, really pumped. So again, if it's after March 27th, still go check out OUX.com/levelup. There will be some pathway there for you. But if it's before March 27th, go ahead and register. There's 2 times available. I'm going to do it twice on the 27th. I'm that excited. I want to make sure that it fits your schedule. Okay. So let's get into it. So have you been hearing this whole idea that UX is dead? I feel like I've been hearing it for maybe even 2 years now. I think maybe it was a while ago when I heard it the first time. And it's not just hearing it, we're feeling it too, right? We're experiencing layoffs. It's harder to get clients. And you may know somebody that has experienced a layoff, even if you haven't. It just feels like things are just crumbling around the edges, right? And it's kind of, people are freaking out, especially people who are just getting into UX. It's just started getting into this a couple years ago, and they're really having trouble getting a job. So that is also a sign that what is happening in our industry. Now, I understand why this is happening. I'm going to get into that in a second, but I also just feel like something really doesn't add up because the in-shitification is real, y'all. I feel like stuff is just getting worse and worse and worse. I get annoyed by technology a dozen times plus every day. It's not like everything has been figured out. The kludge factor just seems like it's just growing, every time I log onto the internet, it seems a little bit worse. I mean, this is big companies are making major UX missteps. Also the tech debt, you can just see it breaking at the seams. I'm experiencing bugs with Apple and Google and Amazon. I mean, the big tech companies. Yeah, I don't think I need to convince you of that, right? We're all experiencing it. And we haven't gotten to the place where people love technology. That's another thing. That is really the core of what UX is to bring humans and technology together. And who do you talk to in the world that's I just love tech? Everybody's so annoyed with it, right? Talk to your parents, talk to your brothers and your sisters and your friends. Nobody loves this shit that we're making, really. Sometimes there's little glimmers of it where oh, this is a really cool new thing. But in general, people are pretty annoyed by it. Also, another factor here is complexity is going up. So there's we're trying to connect things way more. There's just more people that are online. We're living more online. More and more of our lives, for better or worse, are happening online. And the expectations of users are going up. How does it add up that somehow we are not in high demand? It seems like UX should be in super high demand right now. And yet that is not happening. Or it definitely seems like it's happening less and it's not happening as much as we'd like it to. I want all these people coming into UX to just easily be able to get a job and get a job that they love too. Why is this happening? Even though shit's getting worse. And nobody's out there saying, oh my gosh, the user experience of being online is so amazing. Everything is so effortless now. Like we've got it all figured out. That's not happening. So what is going on? Okay, so this is my theory. And let me know. What do you think? Slide into my DMs. Send me a message on the forum.oux.com. I'm hanging out there. Let me know what you think. Comment on the podcast. That exists in Spotify. So let's start a conversation. I want to know how this resonates with you because this is my theory. This is how I am seeing it. And the more I talk to people about it, it seems that it's clicking. Okay. I think that we were trained. Now, this is when I say we, not everybody, okay? Like we all have our different paths. I am not saying that this is you. I'm saying like overall, a lot of UX designers were trained to kind of think that we're going to change the world. And I believe that we are. But we almost got trained into, I don't have the best word for this, so this is not quite the right word, but we're like trained or indoctrinated into kind of UX snobbery. Very, very high level thinking about how we are going to come in and we're going to save everybody from themselves. So we get this like big idea on like what it means to be a user experience designer, what it means to be a designer, right? And then we go into companies and we want to solve these big problems and we're feeling very excited to go and do this like big important work. And then our hands get tied. Then we're told to place this button here and don't ask why. Or like UX, like this 1/3 of a page. UX this section of a flow, or just like change the navigation, or can we like work on this dashboard widget or something like that? So we have this mismatch, right, of expectations and reality, okay? And we can see this in the advice that elder UXers give to like the young bright-eyed UXers coming into the industry. Like, what do we say to them? We basically try to give them a reality check. They've come in with like all of these big dreams on what they're going to do. And we try to like bring them down a notch gently to be like, it's not really going to be like that. Have you given that? I know I've given that advice. Like I remember one of my interns, she came from the Georgia Tech HCI program, and the projects that she was working on were so freaking cool. Like she was working on like a digital therapy aquarium that was being used for people with autism. She was also working on an interface for rescue dog handlers. Like so freaking cool and needed, right? But I was like, so when you get your first job, it's probably not going to be like this. You're probably going to be designing a page in a cart checkout or something like that. So I was trying to like give her a little like a little gentle, tough love reality check. And I'm sure if you've been in the industry for a while and you've done any mentoring, you've said something like that. We try to like reconcile this mismatch. So basically we are taught to play huge, which kind of alienates others. And then we're told to play really small, and we're stuck playing really small, which kind of like makes us mad and resentful. And mad, resentful people don't necessarily make the best employees and best team members. So what I think we need is this recalibration here, okay? And before I get into that, let me just get into this a little bit more about like our hands being tied and why that happens. Like this is not necessarily the industry's fault. I think that we should take some responsibility on how we have educated them on what we actually do. So let me talk about this recalibration. So I think like instead of this, like we're thinking really, really big, we've been trained really big, we have these really big ideas that can sometimes cause the business and even our technology partners to roll their eyes at us a little bit behind our back. On the flip side, we're not only told to play really small, the actual tools that we're given in a lot of the design training that I've seen is actually tools for doing UI design. So we're taught about typography and white space and maybe even some like front end code. And those are not the tools that we need to do that really holistic, strategic UX that is going to be so freaking valuable. So this calibration that I'm talking about, I feel like we need like practical bigness, okay? Every time we get the chance, when we get a little scrap of time and space, because we only get little scraps right now of time and space to like push the edges of the box that we're in, we really need to make the most of it. We need to play big in a way that meets the business and our technology partners where they are. And this to me is the embodiment of servant leadership. And I'm going to talk about 5 ways we can really bring servant leadership into what we do in whatever spaces we can get, so we can make the most of those little inches and those little scraps that we get so that we can start being given a mile. Because what happens a lot of the time is when we do get those little scraps, those little inches, we can kind of do that hand wavy stuff that alienates us, okay? So we need to figure out what is that practical bigness. And that's a lot of what I'm going to be talking about.
So yeah, for the most part, the industry has put us in a position where we can't actually do what they need us to do, but it's on us to break the mold.
It's our responsibility to prove the value of our strategic work. And this is work. This is what makes this so tough, but totally possible. This is work that they don't even really expect us to do. Okay. And for the most part, we aren't even trained to do. They hired us to solve these problems, but expected us to solve these problems by kind of skating along the surface and sprinkling our UX fairy dust on top. And then we did that. We kind of just said okay to that. We moved the buttons around. We designed the 1/3 of a flow. And then the problems didn't get solved. And now it's like, oh, like this isn't working. UX isn't working. We're paying them too much money. And so this practical bigness is what I keep coming back to. Like, how do we meet them where they are? Okay. And some of us can do this in a big, loud, and bold way. If you were in a position to do that, please do. We need to redefine what UX is, but we also don't have to rock the boat. This can be done quietly. And I've actually been teaching thousands of designers over the years to do this loudly or quietly, whatever your style is, and also amicably reshape their roles. This is what I did in my career. I was so unhappy in what I was doing in those first 5 years that I had to take a step back and be like, what is this? What do I actually want to do? How can I bring the most value? And how can I do that in a way that just lockstep clicks in with what actually needs to get done and give that servant leadership? So, okay, what are these 5 things, these 5, what I'm calling the 5 level ups that really embody that servant leadership that I think can really transform UX to save UX? Okay, I don't want to actually save the current state of UX, if that wasn't clear. I don't want to save the status quo. I don't think the status quo has ever really been right from what I'm hearing, from what I experienced. And then when students come into my world and the pain and suffering and frustration that they're experiencing, like, I don't want to save that. We need to transform it to save it and make it way more freaking valuable. So the first of these core level ups that I think that we need within ourselves and thus the entire industry is the ability to process a lot of complexity, the ability to take in a complex situation or a complex domain and make sense of it, organize it, make it clear to ourselves. We basically need to become experts at becoming subject matter experts. And then to be able to translate that to everybody else. So it's like, can we become the holders of the user experience of understanding complexity, right? So we're basically, I've said this, I'm actually going to bring back this metaphor. I've said we're the Tinkerbells of complexity so that our users don't have to handle all the complexity, but also so the rest of our team can kind of like, it can filter through us. So we can take in all that complexity and then the rest of the team is like, oh my gosh, you just made that make so much sense. And these are all going to build on each other. Okay. So I think that was really the first one, to become an expert at becoming a subject matter expert. So we want to feel like, this is from the words of Kristen G. She is a certified OUXer. After going through my program, she said, now I'm firing on all cylinders. Okay, so how cool is that to think that maybe you have like untapped cylinders for being able to process complexity and take in a lot of information, and whether those are complex business requirements or technology constraints or very, very domain specific needs of a user, right? To be able to take that all in together and make sense of it, to be able to present it back and say like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Does this make sense? And get feedback on it. The next thing, number 2, my second core level up, is what I've been calling bomb diffusing. So this is basically asking those showstopper questions that uncover risk and expose assumptions and get everybody on the same page, or help us realize where we're not on the same page. So this builds right on complexity processing. So we want to be able to process all that complexity, but while we're doing that, we want to be able to do a really nice gap analysis. What do we not know here? So often when we get a whole lot of information, we get a whole lot of complexity, it's very easy for the human brain to just shut down. Right? And be like, this is just really, really confusing. Okay. So we want to be like, no, bring it on. Bring it on. I have the tools to process this, to figure out, okay, what is true? Ooh, and like, is this true actually? We're actually not sure if this is true. And this is one of those things that is going to have a high impact on the design. So we can often also get distracted by our curiosity because a lot of UX designers are very curious. So sometimes we can ask questions that are irrelevant. So we need to know, is this question something that is actually going to directly impact the project? Okay. So being able to do that is such a power skill, to be able to ask these really, really good questions. Okay. That spark debates, that bring, like, if your question sparks a debate and brings people into a conversation, then you know that was a good question, because it's something that is an unknown, or like one person A had one idea and person B had another idea. And you don't want to move forward with the project until everybody's on the same page, especially with highly relevant, high risk questions. So these two really go together. They're like a back and forth, right? They all go together. This ability to take in the information and then see the gaps and surface the gaps. And I call this bomb diffusing because it's kind of like if you can be the person, if we can be the people that are literally disabling the landmines from the future, right? Like, we're going to step on like these landmines. If we don't talk about them now, it's just going to be really painful later, because we're going to step on these later. And ouch, that's going to be a lot of rework. That's even going to be like, oh God, what if it happens while we're in production even? So we really don't want that. So if we can be the people to surface those difficult questions early, that's just gold, okay? It's great for us because we experience less rework, and it's great for the business because rework is really freaking expensive. Okay, this next level up is maybe the most important one, but they all feel so important, is being able to make the invisible part of UX visible. I'm calling this X-ray UX. Like, we need to be able to show the bones of the system, like really show the bones of the system. And I'm not talking about wireframes, all right? I'm not talking about low fidelity sketches. What are the bones of the information before we get into screens? Y'all, the biggest impact we have on a product's UX is at that high level early conceptual stage. Yet the work that we do at this stage is often invisible to the business. So it's really hard to get buy-in to be included so early and to get time and space to do that really valuable work if we're not making it really nicely visible. The value that we delivered is just often so buried in like our scribbles and our piles of sticky notes and like our kind of like beautiful mind whiteboard sketches that just people are kind of smiling and nodding at, that nobody can like really collaborate on. So the value of this is inherent to us, but it's way less clear to the business. And these wireframes that we're doing are like our journey maps. They just carry too much detail at this early stage. All right, it's just a very heavy tool to do this conceptual work. So we need an artifact to show this conceptual model of what we're designing. That's not just, I'm not talking boxes and arrows, y'all. Boxes and arrows is not scalable. Okay, if you have an incredibly complex enterprise system that you're designing, or even part of it, like a bunch of boxes and arrows is also going to feel really unapproachable. It's going to turn into a bowl of spaghetti. So we need something that we can also iterate quickly on. All right, a bunch of boxes and arrows, that's actually not very manipulable, okay? So we want to be able to quickly add new requirements as they come to light. We want to quickly be able to move things around, and we want to be able to do that collaboratively, okay? And that is the fourth core level up that I want each and every one of you to be able to do so that we can totally change what it means to be UX designer. And that is what I call creating the loop. Have you ever felt out of the loop? I hear this all the time. Oh my gosh, I just wish UX had a seat at the table. Y'all, we just need to make our own fucking table and make it better than the table that we're having trouble elbowing our way into. Let's make a new table that people freaking love gathering around, because that table, the stuff that happens at that table is so freaking effective. The best conversations happen there. We want to UX collaboration. Can we take that on? Can we take on the user experience of bringing everyone together in that conceptual stage where so much of our value lives, but we don't get to play very often because we don't make it visible? Can we bring everyone together around that table? Yes. We can make a new table, okay? And then the last level up, I want us to take all of that, all those first 4 things, the complexity processing, the gap analysis with our bomb diffusing, our X-ray UX that is super freaking collaborative. And then we need to make freaking banging designs that actually respect some ancient truths about how the human brain works. We need to stop we need to stop chasing trends. That is hard to say. Chasing trends. We need to stop chasing trends. We need to stop looking at what Google is doing and what Apple is doing and what Amazon is doing and what Netflix are doing because they're messing it up too. And say, oh, okay, like I heard on the internet recently that there's no such thing as intuitive design. Oh, what? That it's just familiar. It's what's familiar to the user. So just go look at what everybody else is doing and make sure your patterns are familiar. We don't want to copy a bunch of familiar patterns that don't actually work with how the human brain works and how the human brain processes information. That is what we need to get really good at so that even when we don't have a lot of time for usability testing, we want to feel that unshakable confidence that our designs are going to make sense because they actually just work with how the human brain processes understanding, creates understanding about an environment, whether it is digital or not digital, because we understand what I'm calling these ancient truths of just how humans process information, gain understanding, and get things done in their environment. We need to lean on those. And so you might be thinking, cool, Sophia, sounds good. Let's save UX this way. How do I do it? All right, that is beyond the scope of this particular podcast. Don't come for me. I know there's a lot here, okay? So I have got this 90-minute training that I told you about at the beginning of the hour. Go there and I am going to give in this 90-minute training, the UX level up, 20 strategies to do this. So for each of these 5, we're going to go over 4, do it tomorrow strategies on how to actually do this. And now you might have gotten enough inspiration on this to say oh, I know how to do this. Cool. Let me know how it goes. Seriously, let's start a conversation. If you're like, yes, I think I can do that, go do it. But if you want to know more of the how and you want to know how I've done this and how thousands of other UX designers have done this in their career to redefine what their job actually is, to take on the responsibility of UXing complexity, UXing the question asking, creating an X-ray of the actual conceptual level, UXing collaboration, and then bringing it all together on the fundamentals of how the human brain works. Oh my gosh, it's a beautiful thing when all 5 of these things come together. If you want to learn 20 very, very practical, again, use it in your job the very next day or the same day, if you do it in the morning, oaux.com/UX level up. If you can come to the live event on March 27th, again, there are 2 times. I'm going to do it twice on the 27th. And I'm going to give you 20 strategies on how to actually do this, on how we can save UX, because some of you might actually be freaking out, all right, to keep hearing UX is dead. You may have built an entire career around this. Or if you're new to UX, you might have just started building a career on this. You might have done a complete career pivot, all right? And my heart goes out to you, but I also really want to reassure you that there is a beautiful future for you. There is a bright future for people who want to make digital spaces more humane and elegant and intuitive and useful and have a lot of fun doing it. And you actually don't need to be a bold revolutionary to start reshaping your role. Amazing if you are, but you do not have to be, okay? Servant leadership, y'all. How can we be the ones to take on the complexity, to ask the hard questions, to create the X-ray that everybody can gather around in a nice, beautiful, new, strong table? Instead of elbowing our way into the other table, let's just make our own and then make amazing products that actually work with how the human brain works. Hopefully I will see you on March 27th, oaux.com/UX level up. Happy OUXing, y'all.
Thank you so much for listening. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode. Please visit objectorientedux.com/podcast for show notes. Our soundtrack is Fighter by Ruby Bell, courtesy of Sugaroo Records. Happy OUXing!